It happened over a decade ago, but how did 9/11 change a lot of lives? Specifically, Glenn Banton of Operation Supply Drop. What's up, everyone? Zach Miller here. It's episode 106 of the 1004 show. Super excited because this conversation with Glenn is a lot of fun. I was introduced to him from a previous guest, Erica McManus of Mad Skills, and I really enjoy this conversation because Glenn's a civilian who is helping in kind of a military-based business. We're going to get all into that. Operation Supply Drop. Make sure to check them out. The links in the show notes. But we talk a lot about how military world, civilian world, build businesses there to help those businesses, to help those veterans and those in the military. We'll also talk about how to get through these dark moments and how you can use LinkedIn to actually get the results that you want. It's Glenn Banton of Operation Supply Drop, episode 106 of the 1004 show. Let's get into it. How long has that beard been growing?
This one since probably the end of November. I shaved it for charity, if you will. And I realized, wait a second, maybe we can raise an extra $2,500 every quarter just for growing and shaving the beard. Wife hates it, but the charity community loves it.
So what do? You just grow it and then you get people to donate money? How does that work?
Yeah, I'd never done that before, but yeah, that's where I've seen this as like a popular thing is people, grow their hair out or grow a beard out. And I was getting to the point where it was getting a little bit long. And one of my buddies, he actually, for charity, he shaved his beard and his eyebrows. And I said, I'm not going to do my eyebrows, but hey, let's do the beard thing. And again, I said, raise $2,000, $2,500. And here we are a few months later. We can probably do it all over again.
You got to do like a Fu Manchu or something?
Yeah.
Like,
hey, a bunch of years ago, I ran one of those Tough Mudders, and I did the Chuck Liddell. I had the Fu Manchu with a mohawk down the middle. That was pretty fun, and didn't do that for charity. Did that on my own accord just because I thought it'd be funny. But heck, if you can't have fun, why do it?
So you're a civilian, never been in the military. Do you have a military family?
Have some military family, grandpa, especially, and then my wife's side, she's got some cousins. Actually, I've worked with them through the charity quite a bit as well, funny enough. But for myself, really a lot of where it comes from is I've had a number of friends that have served professionally. I've worked with veterans in the professional space as a mentor since really interacting with them a lot in the late 90s, early 2000s. So even before, the Greater War on Terror, and then things got a little bit more heated. The needs got a little bit more specific. And really how I look at it is I've had a lot of success building networks of my own and professional success. And if I can help extend those to anybody that's willing to put in the work, let's make it happen.
Love it. So what is OCD? What is OSD?
OSD, it's a nonprofit, the military community. It's chapter based around the globe. Started in about 2010, sending video game care packages overseas. So pretty unique, initial founding. I'm not the founder. The gentleman that founded it, big nerd, loved to play video games, especially when he was deployed, and wanted to give back. Since then, it's really continued to grow significantly. So here we are almost 8 years later, and there was really a tipping point in about 2014, I'd say, where a lot of the men and women that we were serving overseas started coming back home, reaching out to us and saying, hey, I need help, with various things. A lot of it really boiled down to I need assistance, in my personal, professional, family life, and, reintegrating. And we have a lot of these fantastic programs that are out there, but a lot of them fail to look at the broader sense of people just need to get together and get out and do things. And it needs to be sustainable and long-term as opposed to, this one transition workshop over here, or this one workout over here, or this one, outing of hunting over here. All those need to come together in a single community. And so we made a pivot, if you will, at that point, while still continuing to support active duty with video games, really tripling down on the morale side of it, and then creating these chapters where, once they're coming home, both the veterans and their families have a community focused on, social service and professional-oriented activities.
What's interesting? I live in the Norfolk, Virginia area, And so that's the world's largest naval base. And what's interesting is I grew up in, I didn't grow up here, and so I understood the military and stuff like that, but no, not really until I moved here. And so my first real understanding was probably going to deployments. I used to work in TV news, so I would see like the deployments and the homecomings, and I'd see the families there and the devastation or the joy, depending on, are they leaving or coming. But I really didn't understand it from a business perspective or like a human aspect until I was running this event called Start Norfolk. And a friend now at the time, his name's Sean Evangelista, he was about to get out, and he said that he was somewhere, I can't remember where, around a campfire with other military members, and he's like, we're all about to get out. What are we going to do? We don't know what to do, and the programs that are out there suck, or the ones that are produced by the military suck, and I have to figure that out. And so he saw an ad for my event and was like, oh, maybe I can start a business.
Right.
And so I don't know if you know this guy. So his name's Sean Evangelista, though, and he has a company called 30 Seconds Out.
Never heard of that company. Yep. Don't know much about it, but yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head, which is it. I hate to say it, but it does take a village. I hate that cliche, but really a lot of what needs to happen on not just the civilian side, but the other side, if you will, is we have to carry the entire load. Looking at the professional side of things, looking at the social side, and again, I keep saying the word sustainability. I think that is so key, because it's not about that first opportunity. It's about continuing to build those relationships for 5, 10, 30 years out. At some point in this conversation, we can get into, the veteran suicide conversation, which is huge. But right now, if we don't look at the longer term of, our OIF, OEF veterans, how are we going to work with them 20, 30, 40 years out? It's not going to be, 18, 19, 22, whatever it is a day. It's going to be 40 a day, because if you look at those numbers and really break them down, they're mostly older. They're Korean and Vietnam veterans, and they're hitting just inflection points, transitions in their life. And when that happens and you don't have a safety net, or you have a good network around you, again, you start doing things that, end it all.
And not just the suicide, but then the homelessness piece of it too, where, we're spending so much time doing the wrong things often. It's like, how could someone give their entire life to our country and then now they're homeless? I see it, I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I haven't seen it a lot recently, which maybe it's improving. But I remember the first time I saw it, it was it was a younger guy, maybe 34 years old, veteran homeless. And that's what the sign said. I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. How could our country allow something like this? These people are literally battling for our lives, and it's crazy. So what's your background? What made Glenn?
I have massive ADD, and as I can describe it now, I'm a huge fan, always have been, of John Boyd, the Air Force fighter pilot and adopted Marine, if you will, and his OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And I had somebody tell me, once I really started to understand that concept, since a relatively young age, I've been able to act like that, in a very, very fast manner. I say a lot of cliches and little taglines, but, doing a BB plus all day, because, BB plus is better than the, C or D that your average person does all day professionally, and just constantly moving. I love solving problems. I know I'm a byproduct of, I was born in 1981, so I'm in that weird little tweener generation, if you will, where we know how to use technology, but are not super excited about it all the time. And so, it's about a 4 to 6 year window where, when I went to school, yes, we had computers, and yes, we had the internet. This is back when MP3s were all the wild, wild west, and we could download all this free stuff and nobody knew anything, but we didn't have Facebook yet. We had none of that social connectivity. So when I this is one of those things, again, as I've gotten older and wiser, I realized that a lot of the success I've had professionally is these moments in time. And so I ended up, when I was in high school even, I went to high school in Massachusetts, found some ways to take classes with the local universities. I took a class even at MIT. Again, I'll say this over and over, not because I'm a genius. I just, why not? Let's go check it out. And even during that time, what I found is if I took high school and college classes, I wasn't accountable either place, and it allowed me to go work. So I had a no kidding engineering job at a big software company in high school, earning some money. Money equals freedom at that age, and it gave me the ability to just kind of test out, working with a lot of people. That also happened to be the job where I really first, started to get to know the challenges of veterans and the professional space, meeting and working with a Desert Storm veteran, and that's a whole nother different set of stories. But you continue to fast forward. Went to school, graduated in 3 years. Again, not because I'm any smarter, any better. I just knew that you got to get this piece of paper where I come from to get out and get a job. Ended up, I graduated 2002. So the spring after September 11th happened. That started, again, everybody had different reactions. I was at the University of Connecticut, where the majority of the school's from New York. So that was one of those really close to home, not everybody knew somebody. Like, everybody had a family member or somebody that had, shared a holiday with them in the past, year that was, impacted by it. And so again, all these little nuggets are happening along the way. End up moving out to all places, Reno, Nevada. Worked in my first nonprofit out there. And again, a lot of this was just fixing stuff. It was called Jam On It Basketball Academy. Actually developed into the largest basketball academy in the world. We've still got kids that I train that are in the NBA as lottery picks, women that are playing professionally around the world. But again, with that, even as a 22-year-old, when I went in, I was looking at it from a business perspective. I love the mission, which was youth basketball and giving kids something to look up to and giving them mentorship, but functioning like a business, because that's what allows you to really grow, be accountable, be efficient, be effective. And again, we can kind of snowball and fast forward from there, but numerous opportunities continue to arise. I was never a big fan of, again, the BS part of the workspace. And that made some people not like me a lot, because I didn't always play the game internally, but you could always count on me to work and, just keep getting better and better and better opportunities, more successes under my belt. And then, you get into this latest chapter of my life. Really what happened is almost 6 years ago to the date, we're about 2 years out, or 2 weeks out, my wife got diagnosed with brain cancer. And that just completely changed how I was looking at things. And, I'd been in the tech space at this point for years, seen a lot of success, on the bleeding edge, making, fabulous, amount of money to be able to take care of my family and put a nice roof over my head. But I didn't really care as much in the same way as a lot of my coworkers did. Around the same time, got connected with OSD, really kind of put some fuel on the fire to focus it as a business, as a veteran service business. Grew that very, very quickly, and then made the decision, I guess it would have been 2014, to just go do that as the full-time job, and then really focus on the tech stuff from more than a consulting perspective. So that's the wandering odyssey of a journey that seems to never end.
Well, I got a lot of things I want to touch on from there. So I think something that you said, people should act and function as a business even if they're not a business, and I think that's so important. So I wrote a book called Anomaly: How to Finally Stand Out from the Crowd, and in it, one of the things that I make a big point is, even if you're not a business and you never want to be a business, start using the things that businesses use, because you'll understand the psychology and the understanding of why people make decisions the way that they do. Even if you're just creating a YouTube channel and you want someone to subscribe, right? If you use business processes into that, you will make that YouTube channel more successful, even if you don't want to be a business. And so I love that, and I think it's so important. Have you ever watched the Howard Stern 9/11 replay?
No, I've not. I haven't. It sounds like something I need to go take a look at.
Okay, so it's 2.5 hours long, maybe longer, right? And so they go on at 6 or 7 in the morning, and I can't remember when the first plane went in.
Like 9:14 or something, yeah.
So they're going through normal conversations, and it's long, but like it's compelling. You can't stop watching it, and so so they joke like some jackass just flew some prop plane in, and then they realize like their jokingness turns into super seriousness, and it's really interesting. So about a year ago, I got really interested in all this kind of 9/11 stuff, and so I just started watching hours of content around it because I was a senior in high school when it happened, and I remember my school's, I guess, principal told everyone to turn on the TV and watch it, and so the only one had gone in at that point. And so I guess they said, "Oh, this is a big day. You know, this is something you guys will remember. You guys should probably watch this," not knowing the complexity and craziness of it. And obviously, the second plane hits, and then my teacher goes, and I grew up in the Washington D.C. area. My teacher goes, "Well, at least nothing's hit Washington D.C. or the Pentagon." And literally 30 seconds later, it hits there. And so many people that went to my school, they had family members that worked there, and so it was wild. It was just such a weird day because you were at UConn when it happened.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
and even you're describing this, and like I mean, I get sad and angry and goosebumps, and I can't sit still. And the reason why I keep looking is I have two kids. I have a daughter that's a freshman in high school, and my son he's in fourth grade, and I don't want to hammer with those images, but that is such a you know big real thing to understand the complexity of the world we live in right now. Um, they have to understand, and in the same way that we're far removed, yes, from Pearl Harbor, but I know that for years was kind of the same thing because you have to teach your children like specifically what we're fighting for, and you know there's this web or this weave or this narration that exists across time with all these different events that happen. But 9/11 is the real deal. That's what got us into the fact that we're in this 15 plus year war, conflict, whatever you want to call it at this point. And I think a lot of the challenges of where the younger side of our generation is getting frustrated is they're not being told why. It's getting completely overlooked. And, now I know because I've described, especially to my daughter, she gets very, very emotional. Same thing, the same way I did. She didn't even experience the same way you and I, saw it on the TV and had all these people, but, she gets it to the point of where, that's a difficult day. Because again, that was go time for us then losing, thousands of our brothers and sisters over the next number of years.
well, and I think too, it was something that actually happened on our turf, and so often context is incorrect, right? People don't understand the context because they can't see it. This is something that actually, literally hit home, where all this other stuff, we've never traveled there, we don't see videos of it, we don't understand it, and so, I mean, Pearl Harbor and 9/11 are probably the two, right? And Pearl Harbor is so removed that people forget about it, but like to hit the biggest city and the biggest buildings, I mean, that's big impact. I mean, I'll never forget 9/11. I mean, it was a wild day. And I remember like all like gosh, 80+% of the students, their parents took them out of school. That day, they're like, hey, you need to get out. My parents did not do that. I think they wanted me to experience it. I don't remember. It's something like that. But I mean, it's such a crazy day. So what did that day do for you long term that helped you kind of gel into who you are today?
For one, it really changed where I was going to go. I mean, it completely changed the trajectory. I'd say up to that point, if I had to guess, what I was going to do or where I was going to go after college, I was planning to go, down to Washington D.C. and go get a job at a, DoD contractor or something. Again, prior to that being the case, and I had no desire whatsoever. I enjoy big cities, but I'm definitely not a big city person. I mean, yeah, I live outside of Austin right now, but I mean, I'm on 4 acres, and as I look, past where you and I are chatting right now, I can see 5 Longhorns, not even a couple hundred yards away from me. Not mine, thank goodness. It's like living on a ranch, but somebody else is taking care of it. But the point being is, I immediately felt drawn to my faith, and how that was going to really drive the fact that I'm not in control of anything. I mean, this could happen anytime. We always joke about you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. I mean, you could get hit by a plane in a building. That's even more insane than the old adage of the bus. But I ended up moving, to Reno, Nevada, taking my first real leadership job in a nonprofit, meeting, who would become my wife 2 weeks after I moved there, and really having the ability to test out a number of things professionally that panned out extremely well. So again, I'm definitely one that, think everything happens for a reason. You do always react to things in different ways, and it really just pushed me to kind of go to the outdoors, if you will, or to someplace smaller and really hone in on that before kind of jumping back out again.
Have you ever seen the? I think it's a documentary called "The Man in the Red Bandana."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have?
Yeah.
That story's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, that's all the stories are absolutely amazing. I mean, I think that's the you'd say digging into like a lot of this different types of content. It's again just those near misses, those what put people where they were at what time. Unbelievable. I mean, it just shows you how delicate life is, and how how things are balanced in such an odd way. And for me, it makes me appreciate everything I have. Others, I think it makes them scared. It's just more of a matter of your perspective on everything.
How's your wife and the brain cancer?
Not super awesome. So she actually started chemo last month. She does it for 1 week a month for the next 12 months. Again, this is 6 years later. The big challenge with what she's going through is she's got, and a lot of people don't realize this. Radiation itself is terrible. It's arguably worse than cancer in some cases. It caused a lot of damage. It caused a lot of her symptoms. It's actually created new problems. And so that's what's made it a lot more difficult. But what makes her absolutely incredible is regardless of, how she feels, she'll just keep going. If you were to meet her tomorrow, she'll put on a happy face, and she will, she'd make it happen to be able to meet people, to do things for our kids. It might take 3 days or a week afterwards to recover, but that's super inspirational to me, to be able to make sure I'm doing everything that I can to put her in those great situations. But the other thing too with what she's going through is it's actually created this interesting bridge with a lot of the veterans that we work with, because she has a TBI. She has a lot of the mental health challenges that anybody with major medical things goes through, regardless of how appreciative or blessed or grateful you are. You get into these dark moments where, when you're in huge amounts of pain, you don't have any more more fuel to, again, keep your hope up in some cases. And so she's actually developed relationships with mentees of mine on a level that I really can't, because she can directly relate to that physical pain and the mental pain they're going through, whereas I can speak to it from a caregiver perspective and that support, but again, it's super different. So, as you're probably collecting through all these little stories, I mean, again, it's just kind of this big web of things that all add up to what I think is a pretty cool day to day.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, right? So it's kind of the context of the mentorship, where it's difficult, where you're trying to get advice from someone, but if they've never done that thing before, what kind of substance can they really give you? And so it's interesting that she's been able to find that. So knowing that you're having to deal with that from the emotional side, that your wife has cancer and several other things, what do you do to get through the dark moments?
I mean, prayer. That's hands down. I mean, I've always had, my faith is really the rock for what I do. It's probably even become more so. And even professionally, it's becoming more of a less taboo topic, thankfully, to talk about. And it's less about, like, if I meet somebody and that's not how they do things, no big deal. I'm not going to sit there and, Bible thump you or something. That's not how I do it. But, I'll give some credit even recently to, I ran into, now somebody I'd call a great friend, Eli Crane, the Navy SEAL founder of Bottle Breacher. Met him at a conference last year. And, I had the privilege of keynote or being on a panel and moderating the Shark Tank panel with him, the gals from Our Riveter and Matt from Combat Flip Flops. But when I was talking with Eli, the entire conversation was how you factor your faith into the professional world in a way that makes sense, because a lot of it really boils down to, I believe in purpose through service. So in those dark moments, the best way to get out of them is to go find somebody else to help, as weird as that may sound, but that works for me. But when I talked with Eli, and we've had numerous conversations since, what I've found is, even from a mentor perspective, the more often I mention how my faith and, again, that purpose through service drives my everyday, even when things get tough, it's, I think, opening up the conversation to allow more people to feel even more comfortable with at least speaking about that. Because I've always been one that, again, whatever, whether it's faith or politics, and whatever you exist on, whatever spectrum it is, if you can't speak with others about those topics, you can't actually have a relationship. It's not possible, because those are a direct result of literally what's inside the deepest part of your soul and your values. And it doesn't mean that everybody needs to agree, but if you can't talk about it, again, how do you truly get to know somebody? And so I've become more confident and comfortable, I'd say, with that for my own self, and then try to encourage others, again, whether they have the similar, same, or something different, just being more comfortable with who you are.
So how do you factor faith into the professional world?
Really, number one is, I don't believe I have control over anything. I can't try to control anything. So, I truly believe that it's God's will as to what we're going to be able to do. And my purpose, again, is to each morning wake up and serve others, period. Again, if you want to, really look into a lot of the stories about, trying to follow in the path of Jesus, all of it is 100% about, service to others. And to me, what's great about that, and even if you don't, subscribe to that set of beliefs, the basics of serving others, even from a networking perspective, always pays off. Some people like to look at the karma argument, or you get out what you put into something. And we have all these, fun little cliches and posters and whatever that nobody actually follows. But I can say without a doubt, 100%, once it clicked a number of years ago, where if I put my effort into others, it will make my professional and personal success better. Once that clicked, that's when success, as the world would define it, began to get hotter and hotter every single day, to the point now where I meet somebody new and you're inside my network as far as I'm concerned. Like, you need something, ask me. Worst thing I say is I don't know. Second best is let me connect you with somebody, and third is let me help you. One of those three things is going to work. But I think we have such a skeptical society, to where on LinkedIn I'll go and reach out to somebody and say, hey, don't need anything, just wanted to check in. Is there anything I can do for you personally? And the responses I get back to that are, hilarious if they weren't sad. Whoa, what did I do something that makes you owe me? No. I've had people, disconnect with me because I think they feel, uncomfortable with that sort of relationship. But to me, that's life. I mean, we're all supposed to help one another, and it's not that difficult either. So, again, all that just boils back to, in my opinion, really what the Bible says and what my faith is about. And it makes me feel a lot lighter when I wake up, despite all of these crazy things going on around us externally and what's going on in my own house. And it gets tough, but you still carry on. It's fun. I can put a smile on my face, 99% of the time.
And a beard.
And a beard, yeah.
There you go. So going back to Glenn, who doesn't have a network of zero, let's say. How do you start building a network when you're a nobody?
Reach out and realize that most other people are a byproduct of other people's help. I think that's the greatest question you can ask, and it's even what I talk to a lot of my mentees about, which is, yes, I can I can help you grow your network, but I also started at zero. It's also not very difficult if you put effort into it. Again, I'm a behavioral and social psychologist, hobbyist, if you will. I've multiple times built up Twitter followings and played around with Instagram. Went on Twitter, built something up just to prove it's possible. Killed that off, started another one, and all of them boil down to figuring out who you are, where do you want to go, who do you want to be, and then go find those type of people and say, hey, I know I'm a nobody, but I need help. Are you willing to help me? And some people are going to say no. Who cares? That's just what happens. Keep going. I mean, it's not super difficult and doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes effort. And for some reason, I think, again, I'm not that old, but I'm getting older. Nobody wants to put effort in anything anymore, but it takes like the tiniest amount of effort to make things happen, and as that momentum starts to build, don't stop. It can't stop. You need to keep building upon it with the sole purpose of when you get there, or when you make it, if you will, then go and, pay it forward, find the next guy or gal to help them move on, get to where they need to be and really understand what they're looking for.
I think that's so true. So often people are like, Zach, how are you making it? How are people seeing you? And I'm like, well, I'm just helping a crap ton of people over and over and over again. And I'm not quitting. So, I mean, it's like you said, like me reaching out to you. Like I reached out to Erica and I said, hey, is there anyone that you think could be a good guest for the show? So I have a relationship with her. She gives me you. Like, these are the things that you have to do. Like, just reach out to new people. And I like you. So, I mean, it seems to be working just fine. How do you become the anomaly?
That's a good question. I would say I've kind of boiled down to the phrase now, fear no man. People get to me sometimes with certain things, and I've had a lot of things where I've made the right decision. I know is the right decision. Even my mentors, my leadership says so. But externally, it's not something that's and it makes enemies. It's the whole haters gonna hate, that kind of silly phrase. But I think it is really looking and saying, I am going to go out there and I'm going to do me, not because I'm selfish, but because you can't be anybody other than yourself. And it's so funny because if we go back and I listened to this interview or ones in the past, if I listened to them 15 years ago, I would be throwing up and gagging at most of the stuff I say because I never really got it. I mean, that's that again, you get older, you get wiser. But being the anomaly is really just about it's putting the effort. Effort is the anomaly. Gary Vaynerchuk, I've been really fascinated, like many, with his story. I remember meeting him years ago when he was here in Austin, where he was a speaker at an event with me and only like 99 other people. He doesn't do stuff that small anymore, to where I was able to talk with him one-on-one for 45 minutes in the hallway. Could you imagine Gary Vaynerchuk would have a group of 1,000 people around him at that point? But the point being is that was a moment that most people don't realize. He didn't just appear on the scene. He likes to remind people too, hey, I put in the work for 7-10 years and then I, made it in your guys' eyes. But you're overlooking the fact that it took a whole bunch of effort to really get to that point. And everybody wants that instant gratification, that immediate success. But I think further, a lot of folks don't take the time to define what on earth that success actually is for themselves. I'm a huge fan of books like The Millionaire Next Door, the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover, those sorts of mentality, because when you dig into those, to me, the successful people, even if you want to look at financially, the average millionaire in the United States drives a Ford F-150 or a Toyota Corolla, lives in a $250,000 house in the suburbs, and probably is the owner of a blue-collar business. They're not tech people. And I'm not saying that to deter people from tech, but even in the context of, really focusing on the military community and jobs, I can't keep track of how many times I'm having to not steer somebody away from a job at Google or Facebook, but really digging into their personality and realizing, wait a second, they probably should go start a landscaping business because they'd be freaking amazing at it. And the anomaly there is them being that self-aware to say, oh, you're right. I shouldn't do what everybody thinks I should do, which is go get a tech job. I need to do what I love and what I'm good at, or dare I say what I'm passionate about, because again, it's about sustainability. If you don't, and maybe it's not that, bleeding heart passion, but if you just like something, that's enough to really get excited about it versus, I know plenty of people that work at the Googles, Facebooks, Microsofts of the world, and they don't like it. They don't enjoy it because they're this century's factory worker when you really look at it.
Do the unsexy, right? I mean, I believe I read somewhere once that to make $1 million, or those people that you're describing, they usually have 7 pieces of income, right? So 7 different places to be getting money. And so you gotta put your hand in a lot of places, you gotta diverse. So there's a quote, my favorite ad of all time, I believe, is the Under Armour ads for Michael Phelps. There's a really long one. So it's like, they don't put up many words on it, but they take a quote and it says, it's what you do in the dark that puts you in the light. I mean, that's so powerful. And I like that ad a lot because it's about 2 minutes long, maybe a minute and a half. It's because you show the work of someone who has become the greatest of all time in something. And I think people are like, oh, I can do that. Well, here's what this guy has actually done to get there. I mean, it's incredible stuff. And yeah, it's what you do in the dark that puts you in the light. I mean, that's so freaking powerful. What is Glenn Banton the best in the world at?
Identifying organizational problems and developing the process to fix those and then excel afterwards. I mean, a lot of slick words there. Every single job, if you will, or opportunity I've had, whether it's with an individual or organization, it's that. I mean, it's improvement. I had to ask myself that same question a number of years ago because I had my hand in all these cookie jars. I have, multiple different income sources, and people would ask me, well, what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I help people, which is also an acceptable answer, by the way. But it's really boils down to just figuring out how to balance all those different things. And at the macro level, say, well, what I'm doing is fixing things, whether it's somebody that comes to me because they can't figure out how to transition into the next phase of their life. And I'm not I don't have all the answers, but I have a network that probably has most of them. Or it's a business that, it hits some sort of plateau and wants to figure out how to make the engineering team work better with the business team, that sort of thing. Or even in some cases, I've had some fun working on cool projects with Disney Imagineering and smart weapons and, cyber operations. I'm not even an expert in any of those things, but I understand the process of making things happen because people are what make things happen, and I like people. So I think that's a pretty decent skill set.
Very cool. How does Operation Supply Drop work?
We work, we're the beneficiary of a lot of individual and fantastic corporate donors. I mean, I always give huge props to Starbucks, Northrop Grumman, USAA, those types of companies for really helping us out. But it's mostly volunteer based. I mean, we do have some full-time staff, including myself. We have a lot of volunteer leadership in the form of advisory board members. But we have a community of probably about 50,000 or so individuals around the globe, organized in a lot of these chapters, and really their goal is to get out in the community and bridge that gap, if you will. So there's, veterans, active military, family members, and civilians getting together, just doing normal people stuff. I mean, that's again, nothing super unique about what we're trying to do other than the fact that we're actually doing it. I don't think a generation ago our model would be really confusing to most, but the fact that we're really trying to get people from even how you and I are talking here, it's like, how do you and I get involved in something where we're actually going out working with our hands, whether it's, playing disc golf or, normal golf or hunting or fishing or going and helping at a shelter. We need to have that human interaction, and it needs to happen for the long term. But In addition to that, I mean, just I have an amazing team around me that does a really good job of developing relationships with a lot of local and regional partners all over the United States. And we're just committed to helping them even excel in what they're doing. If they have a very deep and narrow mission, maybe they're just helping, the homeless in Norfolk. How can we help them with that mission and then bring their people and who they're serving into our broader mission within the military community?
So there's individual chapters like at every individual city, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually tried to engineer it a little bit more. At first, we did basically say, hey, you can start a chapter anywhere. The challenge is then you end up with 200 chapters with one person in them, which isn't necessarily bad. I don't have a problem with that, but from a communications perspective, and this goes back to again psychology and business. It's just not sustainable to be able to babysit that type of scale. So late last year, we actually reorganized everything into 7 regions. So Texas is a region, Southeast, Southwest, Northwest, Northeast, Midwest, International. And underneath those, based upon a bunch of demographic information and proximity to different installations, we said, here's where the chapters are, organize those together. If you're not in those specifically, we still have, we kind of have this concept of an outpost where you can become a chapter, if you will. And surprisingly, we've had a lot of people reach out. There is a gal from Charleston recently where we don't actually have a chapter in Charleston, and that's not even on our near-term, pathway. But she loves the mission and wants to build a chapter to do things the OSD way. And hey, you know what? We're going to support that all day long. But really, it's giving a framework. Volunteers, we're blessed to have their time, so we need to do as much as possible as we can from a training perspective to help them manage their time and those people so that we can keep really hitting home on our mission.
What's something about you that most people don't know about?
Probably say most people would be surprised. I'd rather go sit outside in a tree and read a book. I read a ton, so everybody knows I like to read at this point because I'm pretty vocal about it. I'm a big proponent of reading actual physical books. I do Audible as well, but all things considered, which is with as much work that I do in the tech space, and actually again consulting on things that I wouldn't use them. I mean, I would be a consumer for them, but I'm not anti-technology. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love technology, but it's a tool. But I'm looking outside and I see this beautiful view, and if I could do anything, I'd be out there reading a book, or if I could figure out how to still help people and dig holes all day long, I'd do that. I love being outdoors. It's absolutely it recharges me. It's so beautiful.
Is there anything else that I should ask that I haven't asked yet?
No, no. No. I think you've done a really good job kind of with the entire arc. I mean, the main thing I'd want to leave anybody with is, again, effort. It is all about effort. It is all about, reaching outside of yourself for a moment and asking for help and realizing that even if you have imposter syndrome or, something of that, everybody got where they are today because of the help of others. Some people might not realize it or recognize it, and that's fine. Those type of people don't want to help you. Just write it off. No big deal. That's how they are. But they're plenty, and especially in the veteran support military community space. I've been incredibly welcomed into the space. I love being of service in it, and there is just an amazing amount of folks that will do anything to help out a fellow brother and sister. And that's how a community is built. That's how we end up really putting a dent in things like homelessness, veteran suicide, veteran underemployment. And really, it's all about just reaching out a hand and saying, hey, brother, let me help you. Let me show you the way.
All right. Many of you guys know that I've worked with thousands and thousands of startups, early stage businesses, and mature businesses. And one of the questions I get all the time, and I'm getting a lot right now, is I need a website or graphic design work, but I really don't know who to turn to. And here's the answer. Arc4. ARCPHOR. It's a hard one to spell, so I'll have it in the show notes so you guys can find it. But like me, Arc4 is a company that has worked with hundreds of businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups, and they get it. You know, so many people will say one thing, and they're really just trying to take your money, your hard-earned money, and then you're unhappy. That's not what you're going to get with Arc4. It's a company that they really do truly get it, and they know how to take care of their clients, and they aren't in the business of just selling you the things that you don't need. They'll tell you, hey, this is not going to be smart. You're going to waste your money, and then you don't have to spend as much money on something like that. So it's a great company, and they are in the business of making you look great, providing you with the tools that you need to generate revenue and sales for the long haul. It's who I trust to manage my websites, and you should too. So if you're looking for graphic design work or web development, Arc4 is the place to turn. Head to Arc4. I don't want to spell it again, but you guys can find that in the show notes, but arc4.com, and use Zach, Z-A-C-K, for 10% off. Just mention my name, but you have to spell it right, because if you spell it wrong, you're going to have to pay 10% more. All right, back to the show.